Can you use the all-new China region pack in an American-themed city? Well, let's find out. This is East Haven County, a series based on a fictional archipelago located somewhere in southeastern Massachusetts. East Haven County has just undergone a major transformation with the creation of a brand new island in its western region, and with new infrastructure like this combined tunnel and some pretty cool bridges, the county is primed for more expansion. We need everything: offices, industry, residential districts, and essential services. Today's focus is all about growth, and I'm excited to dive in because I've got some great ideas to try out, including assets from the brand new China region pack integrated seamlessly into our East Coast American themed build. Well, I hope it's gonna be seamless anyway. So let's take a super quick look at what this Chinese themed region pack contains, specifically from the perspective of someone not looking to start a Chinese, Japanese, or Southeast Asian city, but is kind of looking at, okay, is there anything in this pack I can use for more general purposes? And I'm pretty happy to say that there is. And just overall, this pack is fantastic. Once again, the region packs just blow me away. Let's take a quick look. So we've got two new low-density residential themes. One which has a pretty modern contemporary architecture. I've grabbed a bunch of the assets here, not all of them, but they do range from lower levels, as you can probably see here, to some level 5s. And they're pretty nice looking. They have some elements that look, distinctive Southeast Asian or Chinese, which is cool. I mean, that's the whole point, but it does also, reduce how applicable they are in a more general sense. But I would say that there are definitely a couple of these houses, maybe this one here, where if you change the color set to a more boring, neutral color scheme, you could probably use it in a more general sense. Now, very excitingly, there's also a low-density residential traditional theme. It's kind of like Forbidden City style, and I mean, just look at these assets. They are beautiful and they are very distinctive, very unique, and I just love the addition of these. I think it's just a wonderful addition. Now, squeezing this into an East Coast city, that's probably not gonna happen in our case, but can I just say how nice these are? Now, this pack is just packed, with new zoning types. So let's move on to the medium density residential in kind of a modern contemporary style as well. And we've gone for a few different levels here. So these are the level 1s. And I think, with a bit of changes maybe to the colors, and most of these can actually be changed quite a bit with the recolor mod, which is fantastic. You could probably create some public housing using these and these as well. I think the colors are like the main thing. They're more vibrant, it seems, in China, which is something that at least more Western developers would make super dull and kind of, yeah. We don't want to offend anyone, so it's all going to be grays and maybe a light brown luxury living, The level 5s, these ones, which do remind me more of like more contemporary worldwide modern developments, they are perfect. I mean, we can certainly fit these into East Haven County, and I plan to today to use these. Now, we've also got a high density, low rent zoning theme, which is just fantastic, and these are super generic, at least some of them. I mean, these could almost be featured in the Eastern European pack as well, maybe even not quite the UK pack, but it's pretty close. Once again, you can change the colors of the large surfaces of these buildings, which means that, with a few changes, making this, a little more dull, once again, this could very much look like public housing in Western countries. Moving on to the high-density residential, more like modern style. So these aren't low-rent buildings specifically, but just regular zoning. And wow, I mean, just look at these. Once again, I've got a small selection here through different levels, but not everything in the pack is here. There's a lot more to discover, but these look amazing. I mean, some of these look like pencil towers that you could place in, a New York type build, or just a densely packed downtown where land is extremely costly, and maybe you can buy some air rights from the nearby properties. So I'm pretty confident we'll be able to fit in a couple of these in Fort John as well, because Fort John is just a dense, high-demand city with not a lot of land to sprawl on. We've also got a high-density office theme, and these look fantastic as well. I mean, I don't think there's a lot to say here. I think all of these are applicable in more or less any themed city you're making. If it has a modern business district near the train station or, you know, a Manhattan vibe, these are just gonna be a great fit. And a pretty cool thing, which might kind of go under the radar, but that I want to highlight with this China region pack is that the worker counts for some of these office towers, while still not realistic, it seems to be much higher than at least some of the, you know, vanilla buildings. I mean, some of these towers, this one almost has 500 employees, 400 here as well. This one, a 324. I mean, if a building of this size, this footprint and this height, if we kind of find the vanilla equivalent to that, I would think it would have 170 or 180 employees or something like that. So it's a small thing, but I actually think simulation-wise, this is fantastic. Anyways, let's move on to the signature buildings, and things get quite interesting here because, oh my, we're getting some actual super talls. This building here exceeds 500 meters, and I think they've kind of modeled that to real life scale because it is... I'm gonna showcase you this. I think Fort John has a decent skyline, like height-wise. But this building is very much telling me that most of the buildings in Fort John cap out at anywhere from 90 to maybe 150 meters or so. So safe to say I'm not going to be using the Skyline Palace, this super tall, but I just love the added variety. And if you're building like a proper mega city, you know, maybe something Shenzhen or Tokyo inspired, maybe not Tokyo because they don't actually build that tall due to, you know, the soil and earthquakes, and I'm a nerd, okay? But if you're building like a proper mega city, you're gonna love these new additions. This one as well, I think these two are around 300 meters, and there's 5 office signature buildings in total. We get this downtown office building, which has this is a super bland name, but it's perfect because it's a bland building that you can fit in everywhere, so it's par for the course. And then we have the local office building, and you know, the very same can be said about this name. Perfect additions to the game. We've also got 3 commercial signature buildings, and these can also be used in more or less any type of city. We've got a small bookshop, which has a very modern, contemporary look. I can just imagine the hipsters reading books here and, you know, buying super expensive cafe lattes. And then we've got the United Mall, slightly older, smaller mall, but a very nice asset. And moving on, we've got the City Shopping Mall. Now, what you will see with some of these buildings and the service buildings as well is that they will have some traditional Chinese lettering, which is very fitting given the theme, and these are generally very, very nicely integrated. But of course, if you want a more general use, I would suggest you grab some of these static ploppable packs on the PDX mods, because if you utilize those, you are going to be able to, you know, cover up some of this lettering by using, you know, kind of fusing in a few modern buildings, and you can kind of cover this up and make it look a little more general. I imagine that's something you want to do if you want to use this in a San Francisco city or whatever. Then we're moving on to the service buildings, and these look amazing as well. And some of these are, I guess, are like tourist buildings. We've got this Western Observation Tower, just a fantastic looking asset, and it's not too tall. I'm going to be using this in Fort John. It's going to be placed somewhere alongside the future marina. I've got some pretty cool plans for integrating this with other assets. Moving on to the Yin Yun Tower. I mean, very, very distinct. Probably not something we'll use here in East Haven, but man, this is beautiful. And for anyone looking to build like a Southeast Asian city, this pack is just wow. I mean, I'm already planning a Southeast Asian themed full city series with this pack in combination with the Japanese themed pack. That's a spoiler, but there you go. The university has such a cool, very distinct, unique look and a ton of upgrades as well. You can really get a good student count here. There's this added the sports track as well, which I guess you could also just place in isolation. It has you know, general applicability, but wow, fantastic assets. I'm sorry, I'm blown away here. The city library, I think, you know, with a bit of creativity, you could probably squeeze this into any city. Beautiful asset as well. The local police station, beautiful, can be used pretty much everywhere, and many of these buildings have pretty nice upgrades as well. The high school, you can use this anywhere. This could be an old historic Brooklyn high school as well, so it's very, very cool. No upgrades for this one, but it's a nice detailed asset right out the gates. We've got 3 fire stations, a small fire rescue brigade, a larger fire station, and a proper fire detachment, as it's called here. All of these can pretty much be used anywhere. I mean, these have, you know, a more generalist logo approach, which I like. It means we can use it anywhere. Very nice assets. The hospital is once more something that I think we can fit in anywhere because it has a modern contemporary look. One thing to note here is that the addition of this beautiful patient building does add some lettering that you might want to cover up depending on where you use this building. And we've got the district hall. It's just beautiful. And the upgrade system in City Skylines 2 never ceases to amaze me. It's just so well integrated. It's phenomenal. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Community kindergarten, a beautiful building, can be used anywhere. A community college as well. The same could be said here. And we've got the city hall, which is upgradable with these 2 awesome building extensions. And that provides a pretty rough general overview of most of the things in this pack, although there's a lot more to these zones than what I've showcased here. And I hope the general takeaway is that much of this can actually be used in more or less any type of city, especially in more modern districts. Alright guys, so we've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's just dive straight in, and we're actually gonna start with good old Queen's Cape. It's been a while since we've done any development here, but we're gonna expand it in 2 directions. This stretch of land towards Fort John, where we can use some of the all-new China Region Pack office buildings, and these stretches of land, these islands and peninsula, where we're gonna have a more low-density, super wealthy mansion style, but we are actually going to mix in some low to medium density stuff as well, some apartment buildings. Because if you guys recall, Queen's Cape has some pretty special zoning policies in place. The city was actually rather progressive, and early on, already during the 1920s and 30s, policies were enacted to allow developers to build higher densities out here in Queen's Cape. And as a result, instead of the entire suburb just turning into a low-density mansion playground for the rich, it's now a playground for the rich and wealthy, but with the ability to buy condos instead. So as you guys can see, the urban fabric here is pretty special. We do have some traditional mansions, but they're pretty much flanked by 5 to 6 story apartment buildings. And like I said, these are not mixed income at all. This is one of the wealthiest districts in the entire city. You have access to high-paying office jobs. You have access to high schools and colleges, which reminds me that we gotta rename the college. And we're gonna grab this 4-month-old suggestion by Alex to name it the Gill and Eads University. Basically a fancy liberal arts college. An awesome suggestion. We're gonna let the comment hover on the screen for a few more seconds so you guys can take in the entire backstory. And I guess this acts as a reminder that I pretty regularly check old comments, so if you have any suggestions at all for what you'd like to see specifically in Fort John or maybe just East Haven County as a whole, feel free to comment. Let's start getting the road layout in place, and I've got just the road for it. I have this, let's see if I can find it, the narrow 2-lane 2-way national road. So this is a very narrow road with a max speed of around 60 kilometers an hour. It has zoning enabled, power lines, as well as water utilities. So it's absolutely perfect. So we're just gonna grab this, and then I'll need to I don't think I'll create a bridge connection here. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the continuous tool mode. We're going to disable all snapping. And then since this peninsula is actually quite narrow, instead of like having a road cut through the center, which would, you know, kind of restrict the lot sizes of the houses and buildings we'll have out here, I'm gonna switch so that some of the narrow places I'll have it angled towards one shoreline so that the houses are on this side, and in other places I will have the road hog the other shoreline so the houses are kind of inwards, so to speak. So I think that's where we're gonna start here. I am going to enable the constant slope. We're gonna enable contour lines just so I have a general outline of the shoreline here, and we'll just start all the way down here and move through. So as you guys can see, we're hugging the outermost shoreline here to enable good zoning sizes or lot sizes at the other end. But as we move on to this wider segment, we're gonna quickly move the road a little more inlands, I guess you could say, and just kind of see if we can cut directly through it. Although at this point it turns so wide that we're probably just gonna make sure that we aren't too far from this shoreline, and then we'll have an additional road kind of branch out to this tiny peninsula. I hope that makes sense. It hopefully makes sense when I've actually created it. This is basically what I meant, and I'm hoping I can fit in a small cul-de-sac on the ends of each end segment on these roads. So I'm trying to kind of leave a bit of space so that the cul-de-sac doesn't, you know, stick too much out into the to the actual waters. And now we just turn in and connect. We'll grab the smallest possible cul-de-sac, and that seems to work without, I mean, maybe it did a bit of terraforming, expanding the shoreline a little bit, but it's very little in that case. We'll add one out here as well. Oh man, things are really busy here, moving into the city here on the new bridge we created. Cool thing indeed. We need to bring the road underneath the bridge because we've also terraformed this, and I do have plans for this area as well, which I hope is going to be a very interesting look we are going to develop in this episode. So my general idea is to create some sort of custom, not roundabout, but like, let's see, we're going to try something a little fun here, I think. I might go for the 2-lane one-way highway segment, and then let's just see if we can do this. Actually, maybe I should just I'm just going to create a custom roundabout for the good measure. So I'm going to remove these 2 segments as well. And then I'm just going to create a straight segment. Then I'll enable the continuous tool mode, enable all snapping, and see if I can get the perfect 90-degree angle. I seem to. Then we're of course going to remove the middle segment here. And then we're going to get all this connected up. So this one is just gonna follow straight and move right into it. Although we could probably make this even better than just doing... Let's just try this, and then I'll see if I can use manipulation mode to make this connection a lot more smooth. Because that would certainly be the easiest approach. And we need to move down here as well. So something like, I just want to make a good straight connection. Yoink. Now what I meant is that if we grab move it and go to manipulation mode, then I'm going to see if I can grab this node and just kind of move that back. And that does seem to work. It does make the transition into this custom roundabout much nicer. And of course the City Skylines 2 road mechanics does the rest by automatically filling in all the road lines. And I don't miss having to do this in City Skylines 1. Now if we were to customize this a little more, then I think it's safe to say that the most busy part of this roundabout is going to be this stretch here as it moves out onto the peninsula. It's probably not going to be in the reverse direction or moving out to whatever we build out here. I may be wrong, but we're gonna start with this little change and then see if we need further upgrades. So I'm just gonna create an additional node right here and an additional node right here, and then we'll grab the very same 3-lane 2-way highway and we're just gonna upgrade this segment. And there's a different width here, so I need to disable snapping so that I can just do perfect manual alignment. And I say perfect, but it's a little tricky. Get that piece in place, and we'll do the very same down here. Yank, and then we'll just delete and delete. Now, as you can see, the lane math here hasn't really worked out perfectly, because the whole idea of adding the two lane series, of course, to allow both of these to make a right turn and make this a dedicated right turn only. So we're gonna grab the traffic mod, the lane connector tool, and then we're going to say, if you're in the outermost lane here, you can only turn right. So we're gonna disable this segment, but in here you can also turn right to utilize the extra lane. Yoink. Now that looks a little more nice. And then down here, this transition can once again probably be made a little nicer by just using the manipulation mode. We're gonna pause road building for just a moment to try out some of the new assets and try and work a bit with the general layout and look we want for this area here, because it's always a little tricky to mix densities like this, but the end result is a more unique area, which I do like. So we'll find it, and we're gonna search for China pack. We're gonna go for medium density and level 5 buildings. If you recall, this is the very modern contemporary style apartment complex, and I think we can make something cool here. So I want buildings that I want to make this like a small apartment complex that is at a bit of an angle. So I'm gonna pause the game. I want one building in that is angled like this to the road. We'll get that placed. And then I want one with a smaller footprint that is angled like this. And I think if I move it real close, some of the surfaces, yeah, I can get the surfaces to sort of overlap so that it looks like a single complex. And I do want a bit of surface parking out here. So we're pretty fortunate now that we have the awesome vanilla base game parking roads. So with Anarchy enabled, I am gonna see if I can just kind of wing this. I'm gonna turn one side of these roads into a key to kind of make it a little less wide. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create one segment here, and then we'll get another segment. Then I'm going to switch to the alley. I'm gonna enable snapping and the simple curve mode, and just curve into this like this. And then we're moving into road surfaces, and we're gonna upgrade one side of these to a key. And maybe the bend here as well. And that provides just a bit of parking. Then we'll just grab the better Bulldozer mod so that I can remove some of the sub-elements of these buildings. So that this transition is a little better, because the parking lot is actually kind of moving into the footprint of the building, but without it being my intention, it's almost a perfect fit in between the surfaces of the building. We'll get a few more medium density apartment blocks in place before starting the fill-in with lots of detached housing. And I found this level 1 4x4 medium density from the Chinese pack. And it's not a perfect fit into the theme, but it is pretty generic looking. It looks like something nice built in like the 70s or 60s. And then the colors are a little dull, but if we grab the color scheme that is very prevalent here in Queen's Cape and maybe just copy that over, then yeah, I mean, that actually looks a little better, I think. Maybe I can actually add in the red as well, something like that. I think it's a pretty nice fit. We can't really change the colors of these modern ones, but I think that's fine. They have a very contemporary look. Now I just want to see if I can kind of expand on this by grabbing like one additional segment to kind of build in. This is a bit of an odd corner lot, and maybe I can stitch these two together to make it one complex. Let's just see if I can squeeze this in. Actually, I should probably look at this angle here to make sure I get this right, and I want to make sure I get the connection right, of course. Just like that. Then I think we're gonna actually, let's see if we can make this a little more bright, and then we'll just have these red or maroon accents Gonna copy paste that to this one and potentially have a tiny parking lot here eventually, but we're just gonna start with this 70s complex. Now I do think we need to mix in some stuff from the regular vanilla themes. So we're gonna keep looking at medium density buildings. We're gonna move for level 3 and then let's deselect any pack and start in the European corner. And buildings like these I think would be a pretty good fit. I do like some of this architecture. I like this one as well. So I think I kind of want to add this one actually. Lots of windows facing the waterfront here, but it is a pretty narrow lot. So I do think it's realistic that the building was made to fit, and we'll of course add detached housing close by on either side to kind of completely sell the look. I think we'll be adding this apartment complex as well, right down here, bring that a little bit back from the road. Should have a pretty decent view as well. Then we'll have a look at the North American theme stuff, see if we can find anything here that would be a good fit without being too tall or too crazy looking. Most of the North American themed apartments actually look very old, and they're probably slightly out of place for this area where most of the apartments were built during like an initial stint during the 40s, 50s, 60s and 70s, and then we've seen some very recent redevelopments. I think I'm gonna take my chance and try with some of these Japanese themed assets. Just really get a good mix up, and I know this particular apartment building is open to some recoloring, which always goes a long way, but I also think these are just a pretty nice fit out here actually. And we may just turn this into a complex just as with some of the other buildings. I just need to figure out how to best do that. Okay, so I think we're gonna make things a little more special here. We're gonna bring this back from the road slightly. We'll just grab, let's see, we'll just grab the alley and I'm gonna disable all snapping. And we'll just have a little quote-unquote access road specifically for this little structure here. Bring that back a little. Kind of helps make things, you know, break things up a bit, make them a little more unique. And let's see, and this one has already been colorized in the Queenscape signature paint, and these can as well. That worked out wonderfully, although the roofing is slightly different. I'll make sure this one is colorized as well, and we did make these brighter, so I think we're actually just gonna keep this white tone. We're gonna go real international because we're adding a UK pack apartment complex as well. I think this is a pretty good fit right here. It has a bit of an older look, and yeah, that's quite nice. I don't think this is as colorizable. We can change it, but it definitely has like a darker tone on its own, so I think this is probably fine. Now we probably do need a bit of parking here with the amount of structures we've been adding, so let's see. Get this added. I don't think there's really not room for much more than this. And then we'll just make sure that this has a easy connection. I've got at least one more special development I want to get in place before we add in the detached housing, and for this purpose we're looking to the China pack again, grabbing this level 5 03 2x2, which is basically this little square house, and it has a bunch of different influences. I think some of the pillars and the fences on the balconies kind of gives me like a South American type feel. It's not distinctively Chinese, at least, I'll say as much. So we're gonna enable Anarchy, and then I'm gonna try and place these like you would with row housing, so that they kind of have this increment that kind of follows up the road here. I'm a little worried I'm getting too far away, but it doesn't seem I have any issues. It seems like there's ample road connection, which is perfect, and I don't want any of them to directly be right next to each other. They have to be like at an off angle. I think that's a lot more fun, so I'm just gonna place them something like this, and then we'll grab the most boring version. It's probably this lighter toned version. I'll grab the color scheme, and I think we're just gonna use that throughout, at least for starters. Now these come with some awesome prop variations and fences, but for this specific purpose we're actually gonna get rid of all these fences, or walls rather, and this small antenna that sits at the very top here. I don't think that's something you'd see on a development like this, which is actually rather expensive. It is in Queen's Cape after all, so everything out here is at a premium. And even though the materials and the kitchens and bathrooms and stuff might just be, you know, run-of-the-mill materials, it is definitely marketed as something very luxurious. And I'll give the developers and the annoying real estate agents that try to push this development, it is a very nice location. If I can just remove this last antenna, we can have a little look at what I mean. I mean, these are some pretty stunning views, and it's a relatively quiet area. The bridge is over there, so man, this looks good. Now, I especially want to highlight the surface work done on these assets here by the developers of this China region pack. This is just phenomenal. Annoyingly, it is going to be a bit of a pain extending this all the way down to the roadside for all of these, but that is that's very much like a first world luxury problem. I'm just happy to have such great services to work with. So I'll get back to you when I've done this tedious task. Slightly tedious, but so worth it. And I think with the reduced traffic we can expect on a road like this, I'm going to downgrade this to the regular vanilla alleyway, nothing fancy or special. Although to just kind of mix it up, I'm gonna grab the custom version of the alley I have that has a bit of parking on one side. Then I'll probably have to disable snapping so that I can place these, and then I'm just gonna upgrade a few of the segments to have a bit of parking, like a small stretch of parking. I think that could look kind of interesting. We'll add a stretch, let's see, we'll add a stretch here as well, just so that there's a bit of room for guests and whatnot to also park, even though you do have a pretty big driveway. To make these kind of stand out a bit, we're gonna upgrade with a key wall, which, it acts as like a guardrail for parked cars as well, so I think it all ties in pretty well. For a bit of an administrative change, I feel like Queen's Cape is a little too big as a district, at least in relation to the other districts or the general size of districts we have here in East Haven County. This is somewhere where I have kind of opted for a city of many neighborhoods because I think that's very interesting. So I'm just going to reduce the scope to include the Jill and Eads University, but otherwise we're gonna need entirely new districts for these areas here, and I think this could be a separate district, which I'll need to name something nice. So if you guys have a suggestion, please let me know. I'm gonna go for something that could fit pretty generically an area like this, so that's gonna be like, I don't know, Golden Shores or something like that. But I definitely do need a bit of input here, so let's just see. We're gonna call it Croft Beach. But yeah, open to suggestions. We're gonna name this area as well. Going for the easy way out here once more by just taking part of the vanilla name and calling this Dale Islands. Yeah, I need another suggestion here, and if you've got a bit of a backstory you want to add, feel free. I think especially the way we've built up Croft Beach with this type of mixed development densities could lead to a pretty interesting backstory, probably close to what happened in Queen's Cape, but it may have a specific twist. Just as I was about to assign all the services that cover Queen's Cape to Croft Beach and Dale Islands, I kind of realized that we have a single police station here in Fort John, the Fort John Police Department 1st Precinct Station, which is very fittingly located very close to downtown. And we don't have crime issues in Fort John at all. In fact, as of this August evening, no patrol cars are actually out there in use. But I figured it'd be pretty cool to add a second precinct station, and it's a good chance to get a bit more use out of the China region pack. Because the police station here has a very modern generic look, so it can work anywhere, which is fantastic. So I'm just gonna pause the game real shortly here and maybe just place it right here. We'll see just how well it integrates to this area here. The surface is attached perfectly to this road, and there is an extra garage upgrade, but that doesn't seem necessary. That would probably be overkill. There are 2 palms here. I'm gonna get rid of the palms. Let's see if I can select only those. I can. Perfect. And is it colorizable? It actually is. You can make it fit the rest of the color scheme out here even better. So let's see. Fort John Police Department, 2nd Precinct Station. And let's just get this to cover Queen's Cape, Croft Beach, and Dale Islands. Let's pick up the pace a little with a bit of music. So as August turned into September, it seems like everything got a little more cloudy around these parts, and obviously many of the trees and bushes changed to these beautiful fall colors. And speaking of beautiful, I have to be honest, I am so happy how this area turned out. It is definitely one of the more unique residential districts I think I've ever built in Cities 2. And I did add a tiny bit of commercial activity. I guess you can grab some fish and chips here and maybe do some basic grocery shopping right here. So for a quick recap of my approach here, if you're looking for a bit of inspiration, I plopped down the road network at first and tried to be as mindful as I could on where I would have some space to actually place buildings. So it's a very deliberate thing that the road hugs the coastline here so that these mansions here are going to be facing the waters and have easy pier and boat access. And then I placed down the towers because these are the focal points. They are the defining visual feature of these areas. They even make up a bit of a skyline now. And I'm so happy with how this turned out. These are static ploppables, so these aren't really functional, but on the flip side, they enable me to lower them into the ground and create like one residential complex. And these were, as you could see, from the Chinese low-rent, high-density housing. I didn't expect to use these in a wealthy area, but honestly, since these are so easily recolorable, I think they actually fit. They have some pretty nice balconies, which are closable, so I mean, I guess it works. And then next up, tons of low-density detached housing. And this was a free-fall between the North American and European vanilla housing themes, as well as the beach properties themes, and then mixing in some of the UK region pack houses, because I just think they're a pretty seamless fit as well. And they have a real heft to them, especially some of these larger level 5s. They have a huge footprint. As you can see, I removed all the hedges and fences and whatnot, as well as the surface grass. I kind of like how that looks. It just looks a little more, I don't know, it just looks better, I guess. And I mean, we could say it's due to some of the building codes and like zoning regulations out here that, you know, we have to kind of maintain the natural features of this beautiful area as much as possible, which I guess also explains why there are so many trees here. Property owners are allowed to remove the trees they need to actually build or expand their homes, but it's an approval process they have to get through. Heavy bureaucracy. But I guess as a result, we have a ton of tree coverage out here, which I think is really nice. And then last, but certainly not least, the detailing. So basic surfaces and decals, but more importantly for this entire look are these custom piers and boats grabbed from Sully's Discord. Some of the guys over there create some pretty cool local assets, and it's just very creatively made using all of the vanilla props in game. I think this is created from a pergola basically, which is so cool. I'm gonna do my best to remember to link Sully's Discord in the description of this video. If you're a patron and you grab the save game as soon as I upload this one, I'm gonna make sure that these local assets are all included in the file, easy to install. Now, the development of this all new area has also highlighted a few service deficiencies, because there actually was a small fire over here that was extinguished after a little too long. It actually did manage to spread and almost burn down a couple of houses. And the main reason for this issue is that this area is covered under the let's see, Fort John Fire Department City Firehouse, which is located, as you can see, in the base end subsection of the Coleridge neighborhood. And there's a bit of a drive this way, especially with the current traffic and infrastructure. So I figure we're gonna need a dedicated fire station somewhere out here. And I would love to use one of the Chinese themed ones, and we probably could squeeze it in, but I just noticed the Eastern European themed firehouse and the very traditional architecture it has, and I need to use this. I need to place this one somewhere out here amongst all these other red buildings, and it could maybe just be right next to the police station, although I guess that is, I mean, that's maybe a little cheesy. We are gonna place it over here, right here. And it's gonna require a bit of terraforming to be a good fit, but otherwise the actual aesthetics I think fit pretty well with some of the more old architecture we have here in Queenscape. So pretty happy with this little decision. And let's just go, I mean, no detailing for now, we're just gonna go with this. Anyways, let's make sure that it covers the western portion of the Fort John metro area, which would be West Thornton, Queenscape, Croft Beach and Dale Islands, for now at least. And how does this look in the flesh? Beautiful. Can I change the red coloring here? I think I can. So if I copy this one, will I then be able to... Oh yeah, nice. It's a little better matched now with some of the other reds we see here in Queenscape. Additional garage module, I'm gonna utilize that because it has a more distinct colorization. It's gonna be harder to fit in. But the good old classic, covering up with a few of these now beautifully fall colored oak trees. We're definitely gonna be doing that. I'm happy that we've managed to use so many of the China region pack assets already, but I do want to add some of the cool office towers we had a look on earlier in the video. And as I mentioned, I want to expand on what is essentially the Queenscape business district. So as you guys can probably kind of see visually, it's almost like a second business district that is developing out here and has been developing for a couple of years now. The buildings are obviously very, very modern and they have a decent amount of density, not quite as tall, not as tall at all as Fort John's downtown, but it's definitely an area that is seeing a ton of new developments in these years. And I think we're just going to emphasize that a little more by utilizing some of the China region pack office towers. So let's see what we can find. We're going to use find it, go for buildings, filter for office buildings, make sure we are filtering for the China pack. And then I'm thinking, you know, a footprint such as a 6x6 is probably going to be a little too extreme for our needs. So if we just try and restrict ourselves at a start at least to 4x4, we can kind of see what we have to work with. And something like this is quite literally perfect. It's a decent looking building, but more importantly, it is so modernly bland. It could fit in, you know, the central business district of Lyon, France, or San Francisco, any of the two really. And I'm just gonna place a few buildings here alongside this side of Queen's Passage. I'm not gonna block the entire view, I think, but I just want to make sure that we have some high-rise development on either side of the avenue. So I think this one is just begging to be placed right here facing the parking lot. And I'm curious to see the actual worker count. So let's see, 179. That is a very positive surprise. We got to remember this building isn't all that tall, not comparatively, but I'm pretty sure we can find a tower over here. This one is a good example. So this building here is twice the height of the new tower we placed over here. It seems to have just about the same footprint, like width and stuff like that, but it ultimately has around the same employee count. It's just odd. Anyways, a nice addition. Let's see what else we can find. Oh, wait a minute. It has a younger sibling. We're adding the sibling as well. That's too good to just pass on. So the question is if I should just kind of fuse them together. But I'm actually inclined to just have it be two separate towers. And then maybe they should have a sky bridge between them. Although, you know, this one isn't all that tall, but I think it would look fun, so we're doing it. And let's see if this works. It kind of does, so we're sticking to it. Whoa. I gotta move into Fort John just to see how tall this one actually is. I kind of want to place it in here maybe, because honestly, Fort John has a lot of cool looking skyscrapers, but they're all kind of squarey, you know, and this pack is finally bringing some pretty cool round designed, or at least interestingly shaped skyscrapers. We'll see, maybe we'll get one placed in there as well. And to my surprise, I found just what I was looking for, but actually as a 6x6 footprint building, which is a little bigger than I had anticipated. But it is once again just going to be right across from this parking lot here. And just going to try and angle it as well as I can and get that placed. And I think these new additions fit so well with the super sterile modern theme we have in this new business district. If there's anything I just want to do to make things look real nice, it is a bit of detailing. And I have just the idea for how we can do something super simple that's not going to take a lot of time. So what I basically want to do here is just grab the surface tool and align these to this pathway here. All of this is just going to be really simple detailing to create what looks to be like a quick plaza here, because I have some major plans with this part of John's Bay. So I don't want to encroach too much on that area, because I'll have to just redo stuff then, and that's really not my intentional plan. So with something like this in place, I think just as adding a quick like grassy texture in between these areas here. Let's see, can I increase the size of the bucket here? This looks like the perfect fit for a bit of parking. Just to get a bit more of that in there, because there's really not a whole lot, and I think that's it. Yeah, gonna keep it simple. Let's see about adding a Chinese themed big skyscraper into Fort John's downtown. We actually do have this empty space here near the main train station, which could fit a 6x6, but there was one of these 4x4s that would probably be sufficient. So let's see if I can find it. No, there is this tower here, which would effectively be the new tallest building in Fort John, but not by a whole lot. So it's not like it would overshadow everything else. Yeah, let's just pause the game and see where it makes sense to actually place this one. Probably just right in the middle of this corner. There's a bit of an entryway here with some car traffic to the train station, which of course I could also always just clean up, but we're gonna use the better Bulldozer to get rid of some of all this weird stuff that's a part of the train station. We don't want that. And then I think this is actually the very same tile set that's being used, so that's really cool, and it makes it very easy for us to just kind of fix this up and align some of the surfaces here so that they integrate really well with these surroundings. We'll just cover all this up. There's a strip of grass here that is on the surface a little odd, but I guess we can kind of use that to actually just place maybe some of these birch trees. It looks so cool with this medical chopper making its way through the towering Fort John downtown. Very nice. Anyways, I actually kind of like this addition to the skyline, but I'd be very curious to hear you guys as well. I think it fits in nicely, and it does break up the squareness of everything else here in Fort John, so I'm pretty happy about that. I would also like to see if I can fit in just one of the new pencil towers, the residential ones that are a part of this China pack. And I do have a bit of a awkward space here where I guess if the, real estate is crazy enough and property prices are high enough, a developer would build a tower here of some sort. So let's see if we can find a good fit for this awkward lot. We're looking for some residential stuff, the Chinese pack, and I guess the 2x2s actually have a couple of towers of different shapes and sizes, but I think there was a 3x2 that looked just the part. Not this one, but I think it was a level 5 of some sort. This one is way too tall. This one, it was actually this one. So it's not among the tallest buildings in Fort. Actually, it is among the tallest buildings in Fort John, but like number 5 or 6 or something, but it does look to be not a perfect fit, but I mean, it's pretty close. Actually, I'm wondering if we can stitch 2 of these together, or if that is gonna look weird. We're gonna try, so let's just get the first one placed right here in this corner, and then I just wanna see if I can kind of align the second one, which may not work, but in that case, that's okay. Place one more, and let's look a little weird back here, I guess. Let's see if I can grab like the light color scheme of this one. Just update. Let's see. So I guess from this angle, it does fit the corner quite a bit better to have 2 of them. And it also looks pretty well from this angle. And yeah, I think we're just gonna keep the 2, actually. I do think that works. Let's see. So 63 households for each of these. That is quite a few new people added. I think I'm gonna go with these beautiful tiles for the surface on this lot, and then probably use better Bulldozer just to get rid of the trash cans and a few of the bushes as well. But otherwise, no more special detailing of this part. But man, it is so dense down here. With these towers added, it's time to wrap up this episode. I'd hope to be able to do a bit of industry as well, particularly out here where we have some very interesting terrain, but that's gonna be for another time, I think. And generally speaking, we've made quite a bit of progress. If memory serves me right, we've increased the population by about 5,000 in this episode. To not speak of the aesthetic changes of having the city being much bigger with this extension out here. And the population count is, of course, very much due to how we've mixed densities in Croft Beach and in, what did I call it? Dale Island. Yeah, okay. 2 placeholder names. Very much looking forward to you guys' suggestions. But what I'm trying to convey here is that I had a quick look, and around 700 something of these 934 residents actually live in the medium density towers, but they obviously don't make up the majority of the footprint. So the population count here would be 200 maybe if it was just low density, and the very same thing can be said here for Dale Islands. As I mentioned before, this updated save game with these new builds will be made available on Patreon, as well as all the requirements needed to actually get it functioning. So if that's something you're interested, try and take a look at my Patreon, check it out, see if that's something for you. I'm going to wrap up with some final cinematics of these new nice areas, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.